Mr. Tycoon's Darling Wife, Chapter 1, Prologue. Zheng Tianyi, please! Bang! A beautiful woman was pushed and thrown onto the floor. Her perfectly curled hair was a mess. Her makeup was ruined, and there were bruises beginning to form on her wrists. Glowering eyes filled with pure hatred and disgust stared down at her. He was supposed to be her beloved fiancé, the man that she would soon wed in 1 year. Yet, here he was, glaring daggers into her body. The look he gave her was bone-chilling, as if she had brutally slaughtered his entire family. Was it possible to hate someone so much to the point of where their eyes were practically burning with venom? A simple glance at his infuriated eyes was enough to send chills down one's spine. Standing next to the ruthless man, with her arms wrapped around his left one, was a tiny and petite woman, whose face screamed innocence. Pure, docile, gentle, and anything sweet could be used to describe fiancée. Her skin was pale, like the first fall of snow. Her face was small and adorable, like a cherished and doted bunny. Because of her meek nature, docile smiles, and the allure of a female lead, she always provoked the protective nature of men. More specifically, Zheng Tianyi, who vowed to ruin anyone that dared to harm her. Zhao Lifei, his childhood friend for 2 decades and beloved fiancé for 1 decade, was unfortunate enough to experience this treatment. "You disgust me!" He spat out every word, every syllable prickling her heart. Zhao Lifei felt like the antagonist of their Cinderella story that seemed to walk right out of a Korean drama, one that involved a poor, unfortunate fiancée who managed to capture the heart and attention of a ruthless but incredibly handsome billionaire. "Don't touch me with your dirty hands." His voice, so dark but smooth and pleasant to the ears, echoed throughout the room. The socialites of Shenbei watched from the corner, their mouths moving nonstop as they mocked, gossiped, and laughed at the honorable Zhao Lifei, whose reputation was pushed to ruins. Zhao Lifei glanced up at the man. Her heart was torn in every direction and painfully ached at the horrible stare he was giving her. Zheng Tianyi looked at her like she was the scum at the bottom of his shoes, something that was always with him and would never let go. "Tianyi, Did I allow you to call me that, you vengeful bitch?" He snarled at her, his voice dangerously low. Zhao Lifei felt a pang within her heart. She looked at him as if she had been brutally kicked. When did it all go wrong? Zhao Lifei had dedicated all of her time, attention, and life to him. When he needed help in his company, she was there as the influential daughter of the Zhao family. She helped him pull strings, threatened people, did the dirty work, and allowed herself to be pushed into the brink of stress, worrying over issues that he should have cared about. And while she slaved her way away at his desk, Zheng Tianyi was with his lover halfway across the world. Zhao Lifei's long, slender fingers curled into fists. Because of her naivete and heart, she had decided to fall deeply in love with him. Zheng Tianyi narrowed his eyes at her pathetic state. He couldn't believe in his youth he thought that this lowly woman deserved the title of a friend. When she was a child, she was quite normal and caring. Now that she was older, he saw how much of a crazy woman she was. How despicable. He was fine when she displayed signs of jealousy. What man didn't want a beautiful woman desiring after him? But Zhao Lifei had severely crossed the line when she dared to taunt and bully his lover, fiancée. Who did she think she is? He allowed her to exploit the title of Zheng Tianyi's fiancée to a high extent, and this is how she repays him? By attempting a hit at fiancée's life? "You're nothing but a pawn in my game. How dare the pawn come after the queen?" Zheng Tianyi continued to berate the woman in front of him. She had already fallen from her grace, but that didn't mean he understood the meaning of mercy. His parents saw her as a lifetime partner, but she saw this as a despicable joke. Use my kindness as a warning, Zhao Lifei. Stay away from me and my wife. His voice was chillingly cold, like the freezing wind of the Arctic. If looks could kill, she would have long been cremated, and her ashes would have been thrown into the sewers. The atmosphere was frigid, nipping Zhao Lifei's heart. Perhaps her anger and delusion had finally cracked her, but she wanted to laugh at the title he placed over Xiamengxi. Wife? More like his mistress. The Zheng family never approved of that woman because of her lowly background and heritage. Do you understand me? Zheng Tianyi hissed in anger when he saw her distant expression. He bent down and roughly gripped her chin up. Zhao Lifei winced in pain, which caused him to tighten his hold. She knew it was going to leave a nasty bruise on her jawline. Stay away from Xiamengxi. Zheng Tianyi's voice was so calm that it was beginning to scare the crowd. Suddenly, bubbles of confidence surged within Zhao Lifei. It was fueled by her anguished heart and desired revenge for being torn, stomped, and disregarded. And if I don't? She retorted back at him, her fiery temper beginning to come out again. A black shadow flew at the speed of lightning, and before anyone could react, a hand had smacked her face with so much force that it turned to the side. The crowd gasped in shock. Never in a billion years would they expect Zheng Tianyi to strike a woman. Zhao Lifei's face was immediately swung to the side with so much force she knew she got whiplash. Tears gathered in her eyes at the stinging pang in her cheeks, but she pushed them down. Oh my God, Tianyi, are you all right? Xiamengxi immediately grabbed Zheng Tianyi's rough, calloused hand. It was bright red because of how hard he had smacked her. Does it hurt a lot? She gently asked him with her sweet as honey voice. She blew onto his red hand, lightly rubbing her cold fingers against it. Zheng Tianyi's eyes softened at the sight of the fragile woman beside him. I'm fine, sweetheart, he whispered to her. Zhao Lifei hatefully stared at the couple. Zheng Tianyi had one arm wrapped around Xiamengxi's waist, holding her incredibly close to him. When Zhao Lifei saw him hold Xiamengxi like the most precious thing in the world, she nearly laughed. Who would have thought the devil was capable of love? Honey, let's not pay any more attention to her. I'm beginning to pity her. Xiamengxi's voice turned soft and mellow, like the spring breeze on a hot summer day. Instantly, Zheng Tianyi agreed with her. The halo of the female lead was too hard to reject. As you wish, sweetheart, he whispered to her. He always agreed to whatever she desired. He was smitten by her, and every inch of his heart craved her. But his parents and Zhao Lifei saw it as a foolish puppy love. They had recently begun to date, and were most likely in the honeymoon stage. That's what Zhao Lifei believed in, to convince her broken heart. But a deep part of her knew that wasn't true. The love that Zheng Tianyi had for Xiamengxi was beyond words. Zhao Lifei wanted to keep her mouth shut, but her heart was begging her to open her mouth and seal her fate. Nothing mattered anymore. Her pride was destroyed. Her parents disowned her. The people had humiliated her, and her reputation was blasted into nothingness. What more did she have to lose? Something hot, angry, and bitter trickled down her eyes. Zheng Tianyi's dark eyes flickered in surprise at the sight of her tears. It was the first time she had cried in front of him. He nearly laughed until he realized it wasn't tears of sorrow. It was tears of anger that came from the violent waves of her broken heart. Zhao Lifei saw red. She slowly stood up like a phoenix rising from the ashes, and in a momentary flash she wanted blood to spill. But a force was holding her down. "Stay down. It's futile to fight back," a voice whispered to her. When Zhao Lifei glanced to the side, she was startled to see a mere reflection of herself. Was she going crazy? Was all this anger and delusions finally getting to her? Did Zheng Tianyi slap the senses out of her? "He'll destroy you if you try to fight him. Stay down," the woman softly told Zhao Lifei. When Zhao Lifei reached a hand to push the woman away, the hand went straight through her. Gasping in shock, Zhao Lifei stared at the woman with her eyes wide open, and that's when the floor beneath her collapsed. Zheng Tianyi and Xiamengxi was gone. The people that taunted and humiliated her were gone. Zhao Lifei stood in an abyss of darkness, unsure of where she went wrong. Chapter 2. Utterly Humiliated. Zhao Lifei abruptly sat up in her bed, her heart hammering against her ribcage. She ran a shaky hand through her hair and squeezed her eyes shut. Her lips wobbled as the tears pooled behind her eyes. No matter how much she tried to brush the haunting past away, the pain would always catch up. Soon, droplets of salty tears fell from her eyes. She struggled to properly breathe, hiccuping for gasps of air. In the cold, dark, and lonely room, she broke down. She wished it had been just a nightmare and not a memory from the past. Her heart ached with the painful memories from 2 years ago, surrounded by the country's top socialites. She was utterly humiliated and embarrassed. Her heart was torn into pieces, stomped on, and thrown into the ocean like disposable trash. Zhao Lifei still remembered the pain of watching the love of her life choose a woman he's known for less than a year over her. She had stood by his side for 21 years, wasting her youth futilely, chasing after a man who never spared her a glance. When he was too fatigued to bother with work, she took a position as vice president of his company and worked her body to the ground. She expanded the company to its fullest potential. Zhao Lifei did everything she could to support him, and he repaid her by cheating and ripping their marriage certificate. She had naively fallen in love with Zheng Tianyi and dedicated her entire life to him. She was willing to run to the opposite side of the world for him, but he wasn't willing to. She was willing to sacrifice her limbs, health, and womb over him, but he would sacrifice everything for someone else. Collapsing into her bed, Zhao Lifei stared at the bleak and endless darkness. She had sworn she would forget the past and move on. To some extent, she did. But nightmares like the one she'd just experienced forced her to become aware of the painful past that would forever haunt her. Xiamengxi. Even her name sounded innocent and beautiful. Just like the characters of her name, she was an untouchable dream of a real-life Cinderella, growing up in a pitiful family whose father left her at a young age, forcing her mother to single-handedly raise her. She had a very sad story. Her mother used to be a janitor in the Zheng Corporation, and after successfully pulling some strings, Xiamengxi was able to land a job as Zheng Tianyi's private secretary. By becoming his private secretary, she was with him 24/7. Zheng Tianyi's interest in her started with a naive and shy smile that seemed to light up the room. Xiamengxi was unaware of her beauty and potential, which sparked his curiosity. And that spark became a fire that ignited Zheng Tianyi's heart. And soon, Xiamengxi found herself with a priceless diamond ring. Because the darkness allowed Zhao Lifei to reminisce without any distractions, she didn't hear the knocking from her door. The light knock became harsher and louder. It echoed throughout the hollow, empty room. One knock turned into 2, then 3, then 4, until it became excruciatingly rapid. Without warning, the door slammed open. A beautiful woman strutted into the room, her hips naturally swaying side to side, long, slender legs, seductive eyes, perfect body. It wasn't hard to see she was a world-renowned supermodel. Yang Ruqin stopped in front of Zhao Lifei's bed with a skull. She crossed her arms and glared down at her like a mother waking up her daughter for school. "It's 2 in the afternoon and you're still in bed?" She tugged and pulled at Zhao Lifei's blankets. "Qingqing, let me sleep a little longer," Zhao Lifei mumbled, snuggling into her blankets. Yang Ruqin was the only friend that stood by Zhao Lifei's side when Zheng Tianyi practically blacklisted her. When Zhao Lifei's friends discovered she had no more power, benefits, or the title as the Zheng Madam, everyone abandoned her. After many of the socialites realized Xiamonxi's importance to Zheng Tianyi, they immediately flooded to her side. Zhao Lifei wasn't surprised when her friends left her for Xiamonxi. 2 years ago, she was supposed to be the vengeful antagonist in Xiamonxi's life. She was supposed to be the woman that tried to frame Xiamonxi for cheating and the horrible person that tried to force the loving couple apart. Zhao Lifei will not deny the fact that she used to be a horrible woman whose very name was supposed to be a sin. She couldn't change the past, but she knew she could change her future, which is why she worked so hard to become a better person. "Are you daydreaming again? Did you hear what I just said?" Yang Ruqin fumed when Zhao Lifei didn't respond back to her. "You said it was 2 in the afternoon, but my room doesn't feel like it. It might be morning." "Hey!" Zhao Lifei yelped when Yang Ruqin flung the blanket off of her bed. "No, it's cold," Zhao Lifei moaned, curling up into a ball. "Ugh, why are your curtains so thick and dark? There's no natural lighting in this room." Yang Ruqin walked to the long curtains that covered the tall windows. "No, wait, I'm not ready for the light." Too late, Yang Ruqin had already pulled the curtains open. Immediately, the bright rays of the afternoon sun soaked into the room, washing all of the melancholic darkness away. Because Zhao Lifei's condo was on the 5th highest floor of this tall apartment complex, the sunlight was stronger than ever. Groaning at the intrusion of light, Zhao Lifei buried her head into her pillow. She refused to get up, but she knew Yang Ruqin would force her out of bed regardless. "Can't you just leave me here to wallow in my sorrow?" Her voice came out muffled. "A high-class lady such as yourself should not be sleeping until sunset. Now get up!" Yang Ruqin cheated, adjusting the curtain strings. "A high-class lady without friends, a good reputation, amazing connections, is just a simple woman with money," Zhao Lifei huffed. Yang Ruqin sat on top of the bed and sighed, running a gentle hand through Zhao Lifei's hair. "Did you have the same dream again?" she softly asked, stroking her friend's hair. After a few seconds of silence, Zhao Lifei said a meek, "Yes." Yang Ruqin's expression grew soft. "Just so you know, I didn't like Zheng Tianyi in the first place. He was utter trash." Zhao Lifei had a small smile on her face. "You only disliked him at first because he stole your pudding on the first day of kindergarten." "I have a billion more reasons for hating him. He was such a jerk," Yang Ruqin retorted. "And for the record, I still hold him accountable for that," she pouted, crossing her arms like a stubborn child. Zhao Lifei let out a peal of light laughter, the pain in her heart momentarily gone. Thank you, Ting. I don't know what I would do without you, Zhao Lifei softly whispered. Her voice was quiet and broken, like a lonely child abandoned by the world. Yang Ruqing's face became gentle. She reached down and pulled her best friend into a very tight hug. Together, they've experienced so much hardship in this world, there was nothing that could push them apart. My dear, I should be saying that, not you, Yang Ruqing mumbled into Zhao Lifei's shoulders. When Yang Ruqing was faced with any crisis, Zhao Lifei was always there for her. From taking the blame of punching a boy in kindergarten, to the days of high school where Zhao Lifei consistently covered for Yang Ruqing's mischievous deeds. They had seen each other at their worst, their best, and everything in between. We're reminiscing too much into the past when we should be focused on the present and future. Now, come on up. Yang Ruqing patted Zhao Lifei's hand and watched her finally sit up on her bed. Hurry up and get dressed so that we can go eat brunch. Yang Ruqing hurried Zhao Lifei off the bed. With each step Yang Ruqing took, her silky red dress flowed behind her. It's 2 a.m. Brunch has already ended. Zhao Lifei, the pessimist, grumbled to her friend, who laughed. All right, party pooper, we can get lunch then, Yang Ruqing mused, pushing Zhao Lifei into the bathroom. When Zhao Lifei began her morning routine, Yang Ruqing sat in the corner with a hidden and mischievous smile.